Hello everyone, in this video we are going to talk about chapter 2nd of history of class 10th, and that is nationalism in India. I think you all have already read this chapter in class 8th, and what we are going to do now is we are going to just recall once. Here is an introduction about this chapter, and I don't think that you require any type of introduction, but there are few lines in this paragraph, in these three paragraphs, which are so important to you, and at the back of the chapter there are some questions that are related to these three paragraphs. So I will read only once, and the lines which are important for you I'll just explain them. As you have seen, modern nationalism in Europe came to be associated with the formation of nation states. It also meant a change in people's understanding of who they are and what defined their identity of sense of belonging. New symbols and icons, new songs and ideas forged new links and redefined the boundaries of communities. In most countries, the making of these new national identity was a long process. How did this consciousness emerge in India? In India, as in Vietnam and many other colonies, the growth of modern nationalism is intimately connected to the anti-colonial movement. Now, this is a very important line. Uh, what is meant by anti-colonial movement? A movement that is against the colonial rule, against the alien power. In class 8, you all might have recognized a word that is alien power. Alien means something or some people who have come to our country or to our home from some other region, and that's what is conveyed by the word alien power. Colonial government, as the term I remember that colonization or something, a term like colonial was there in the first chapter of class 8 history, when, where and how. So colonial is something that is from outside, and anti-colonial movement means some movement or some sort of protest or some sort of you know ideas or some kind of movement by the people of India, where they try to throw out the or thrash the colonial government out of our country. So nationalism in India is, we can say, is directly proportional to anti-colonial movement. It is directly related to it. Whenever we talk about the modern nationalism in India, we mean that the leaders of India, the leader of Congress, the other leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose are trying to thrash out the colonial rule out of India. People began discovering their unity in the process of their struggle with colonialism. The sense of being oppressed under colonialism provided a shared bond that tied many different groups together. But each class and group felt the effects of colonialism differently. Their experiences were varied, and their notions of freedom were not always the same. The Congress under Mahatma Gandhi tried to force these groups together within one movement, but the unity did not emerge without conflicts. And here, the writer is talking about, the author of this book is talking about that. As we know that India is a country which contains a huge or immense biodiversity. At every 100 or every 10 kilometer we get different kind of people, and as the same as the occupations of people were different, the work of people were different, the race, the color, and the thinkings of people were so different in India then also, and henceforth the things what they felt by the suppression, the oppression, and the depression of the colonial government was different. Here it is meant that the feelings of people were different, and and when the feelings of people were different, they reacted to them differently. For example, the plantation workers protest for plantations rule. The mill workers protested for mill rules. But what was the main objective of all of them? To get individual independence. And what was the main objective of Mahatma Gandhi and the Congress? To achieve Purna Swaraj. So it was very important, and it was very compulsory, and it was very important that Congress leaders Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi would try to merge or mingle all these different types of communities in order to mingle India, in order to mix all Indian people, and in order to struggle for the independence. So that's why this mingling of all different classes and sects and groups was very important. And here it is also written, let me highlight that one. What's the highlight? The Congress under the Congress under Mahatma Gandhi. The Congress under Mahatma Gandhi tried to force these groups together within one movement, but the unity did not emerge without conflict. And now here this line means that the unity did not emerge without conflicts. While we'll be going through this chapter, we'll be knowing that the unity or the unification which was being tried by Mahatma Gandhi and other Congress leaders was not so easy. As I have already told you, the thinkings, the imaginations, and the reactions of different types of people in the country was different. The unification was not so easy, and it did not emerge without conflict. Okay, then we'll move further. In an earlier textbook, you have already read about the growth of nationalism in India up to the first decade of the 20th century. In this chapter, we will pick up the story from the 1920s and study the non cooperation, the civil disobedience movements. We'll explore how the Congress sought to develop the national movement, how different social groups participated in the movement, and how nationalism captured the imagination of people. In this paragraph, we don't have anything, and here we have a photo, as you can see, an image. Mass processions on the streets become a common feature during the national movement. Actually, a picture conveys 1,000 words. Here you can see that in every movement, including the civil disobedience movement, or if we talk about the non-cooperation movement, rallies would take place. Common feature, mass processions. Mass procession means where a large number of people, or say innumerable people, participate. Then we have the first topic of our chapter, the First World War, Khilafat and non-cooperation. In the years after 1920, we see the national movement spreading to new areas, incorporating new social groups, and developing new modes of struggle. How do we understand these developments? What implication did they have? First of all, now here the important line starts. First of all, the war created a new economic and political situation. It led to huge increase in defense expenditure, which was financed by war loans, and increasing taxes. Custom duties were raised and income tax introduced. Let me have a pen. What were the economic and political situations which had been created by the war? It led to a huge increase in defense expenditure. And now, if you think on your own, what will happen if the defense expenditure or a defense or the defense budget of a country increase? If this happens, then the economic condition of a country like India and the British India, which was not so powerful, and that was again an alien power, would decline. As we have seen, these all facts which were after the First World War, or which were due to the First World War, were all negative. Why? Because the defense expenditure had grown, and when the defense expenditure had grown, custom duties were raised. Duties means some sort of tax or some sort of revenues. So duties and that means tax and revenues were raised, and income tax was introduced. Introducing income tax. What happens when what happens when tax is being imposed in the things like salt, or say sugar, or say wheat. This would lead to a very very bad economic condition of a country, because wheat or rice or salt or sugar are basic things which are required for living, and without which a person or a citizen or a whole country cannot live. So when taxes are introduced, the economic condition of a country falls down, and it leads to negative effects. So the two major negative economic situations were custom duties were raised and income tax introduced. Now, through the war years prices increased, doubling between 1913 and 1918, leading to extreme hardship for common people. Extreme hardship for common people who would not be able to afford anything except or say including the food items which were important to keep their family living, or to run the train of their lives. So the common people who did not have any type of extra income or any savings, they would face difficulties as the economic condition of the country fell down, because of the First World War, in which the Britishers had participated. Moving further, villages were called upon to soldier supply and forced recruitment. Forced recruitment means if you don't want to join army, and then even you are forced to join it. The peasants who were supposed to do farming at that time were captured, were forced, and were obliged to join the army, and that's what the forced recruitment. So forced villages were called upon to supply soldiers, and forced recruitment in rural areas caused widespread anger. And what will happen if somebody takes your family member, say your brother or say your father, and when somebody captures him, and if somebody capture him, and if somebody take him to another place where he would train him, and he would then convert him into a soldier without your permission, without his permission, without his you know without his will, then you will become angry. So this forced recruitment which was being done by the Britishers then caused widespread anger, matlab, anger which is widespread. Wide means broad, and spread means spreading everywhere. So this anger which was caused by the forced recruitment was widespread. It spread throughout the country. Then in 1918 and 1918 to 19, crops failed in many part of India. Including this economical and political situation, crops failed. That means the price of food increased, acute shortages of food. When the price of food increased, people would face the shortage of food, and they would not able to buy even food, even rice, even wheat. And this was accompanied by influenza epidemic. So including this political and economical situation, crop failed, which lead to very great economic depression in the country, and that led to an inavailability of food items. An influenza epidemic also spread throughout the country. And according to the census of 1921, 12 to 13 million of people perished as a result of famine or and the epidemic. Means when this economic condition, when this economic hardship, when this economic depression was going on, crop failed, influenza epidemic spread, and as a result, around 12 to 13 million people perished. That means 12 to 13 million citizens of the country died according to the census of 1921, and this was not a very good condition when people were dying, when the economic condition was not so good, when the crops failed, when people were not able to even buy food for them. That means people were not even when people were not even to even manage to live live and when influenza epidemic would spread, so this condition was not so good in India at this stage. Sorry, people hoped that their hardship would end after the war was over, but that did not happen. Many a times in your life, this thing happens when the thing, when something that you think did not happen does not happen. So people also thought that this hardship that was going on would end after the war, but that did not happen. And at this stage, a new leader appeared and struggled and suggested a new mode of struggle. A new leader appeared. Who was the new leader? Of course, the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Now, moving forward to the next topic, idea of satyagraha. Mahatma Gandhi returned to India in January 1915. As we all know that Mahatma Gandhi had been to South Africa in order to remove or in order to thrash out the apartheid there, where I think you all might have heard about his story where he was thrown out of the first class as he was an Indian or as he was colored, and the non-colored would dominate the colored or and the black people in South Africa. So in order to thrash out the apartheid system in South Africa, as you have already learned about that in chapter 2 or 3 in civics of class ninth already, where you have read about Nelson Mandela. So in the struggle of South Africa, Mahatma Gandhi had a very key role in the struggle of South Africa. And after that struggle, Mahatma Gandhi returned to India in January 1915. Here we have an image. Indian workers in South Africa marched through Wall Trust, 6th of November 1913. Gandhiji was leading the workers of from Newcastle to Transvaal when the marchers were stopped and Gandhiji arrested. Thousands of more workers joined the satyagraha against racist law and denied rights to non-whites. So here is an image of that particular satyagraha or that particular struggle in South Africa. Now moving forward. The racist regime with a novel method of mass agitation which he called satyagraha. So the struggle which he did in South Africa, Mahatma Gandhi would call it as satyagraha. Satyagraha means satya ke liye agraha. When we guys study about samas and samas vigraha and all that, we have studied about satyagraha. That means satya ke liye agraha. So the idea of satyagraha emphasizes the power of truth and the need of search for truth. Need for search of truth. Satyagraha means need for search of truth. It suggested that if the cause was true, it suggested that if the cause of fighting was true, fighting means here fighting doesn't means that you must only fight with weapons or with guns or with swords. Here the fighting means by protests, by raising your voice against something that is being imposed on you, something that is that is oppressing you. So it suggests that if the cause of fighting was truth, if the struggle was against injustice, then physical force was not necessary to fight the oppressor. Physical force was not necessary to fight the oppressor. Without seeking vigilance, or I don't know this particular word, or being aggressive, a satyagrahi could win the battle through non-violence. Here it suggests that satyagrahi means the one who follow the path of satyagraha. Then a satyagrahi could win the battle through non-violence. That means violence is not required in satyagraha. This could be done by appealing the conscience of the oppressor. People, including the oppressor, had to be persuaded to see the truth instead of being forced to accept the truth through the use of violence. That means in satyagraha, people, including the oppressor, the one who oppresses you, can be persuaded to see the truth instead of accepting it. I think in I will be off topic. I think you all have seen Daku Mangal Singh in Chota Bheem. How he oppresses everyone to, you know, how he oppresses everyone to accept something. But vice versa to that, in Satyagraha, people, including the oppressors, are persuaded to see the truth, are persuaded to accept the truth on their own instead of accepting in by brutal forces or by violence. By this struggle, truth was born to ultimately triumph. Mahatma Gandhi believed that this dharma of non-violence could unite all Indians. So he believed that this thing would unite all Indians. After arriving in India, Mahatma Gandhi successfully organized Satyagraha movement in various places. And here we'll be talking about the Satyagraha which was being done by Mahatma Gandhi at that time. In 1916, he traveled to Champaran, Bihar, to inspire the peasants to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. In 1916, these dates are important. Please note them down. In 1916, Mahatma Gandhi traveled to Champaran, Bihar, in order to help the peasant against the oppressive plantation system. Oppressive, an adjective has been used here. Oppressive means something negative, something that persuade you. And here this means that the plantation system was not good at all. Then in 1917 he organized a satyagraha to support the peasant of Kheda district in Gujarat. Affected by the crop failure and plague epidemic, the peasants of Kheda could not pay revenue and were demanding the revenue collection to be relaxed. Here again in 1917, Gandhiji helped the peasants of Kheda district in Gujarat. Actually, what did happen is these peasants of Kheda district were harshly affected by the crop failure and plague epidemic, and as a result they could not pay any type of revenue, and they were demanding for the revenues collection to be relaxed. So here so in Kheda he went and he supported the peasants of Kheda district. In 1918, Mahatma Gandhi went to Ahmedabad to organize the Satyagraha movement amongst the cotton mill worker. And again in 1918, Mahatma Gandhi went to Ahmedabad to organize a Satyagraha movement for cotton mill workers. So here uh, three things are given where Mahatma Gandhi went to different places in order to spread the idea of Satyagraha, in order to tell the citizen of India about the Satyagraha by helping them in their individual or say in their personal struggles. So these three things, for the first 1916, 1917, and again in 1918, where Mahatma Gandhi went to Champaran, to Kheda district, and to Ahmedabad respectively, is very important, and you guys are expected to note these three things down. And here we are going to end this video. Thank you everyone.